Hello, this is Domenico with Easynomics, and we're going to discuss deflation, which is a sustained decrease in the price level. For most developed nations from the later half of the 20th century into the 21st century, deflation is not very common. Here we can see the United States CPI, or Consumer Price Index, from 1960 onward, and we can see that there's pretty much just inflation and disinflation. The average price of goods and services rising, perhaps rising at a rate that was slower than the previous year, which is disinflation, but not really periods of deflation where the inflation level is below zero or going into negative territory. But we do notice in 2001, as we look into quarter three, quarter four, that there was a small moment of deflation. This is a result of the September 11th terrorist attacks, which occurred in quarter three and impacted quarter four. So there was an instance of deflation, likely as a result of decreased aggregate demand, but it didn't last that long. The central bank intervened, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates, consumption investment spending picked up again. But then we see in 2008, this is the 2008 financial crisis, a period of deflation in quarter four again, reduced aggregate demand, but then it came back up as a result of expansionary fiscal and monetary policy. So we see that for the most part, it's not that common to have periods of inflation, and periods of deflation. But when there is a period of deflation, the central bank and the central government is quick to intervene to offset it and get into inflationary territory. And also, right here, 2014, we see a period of deflation in quarter four again, and this is kind of tied to the price of oil. If we look at oil prices in 2014, it collapsed from $106 a barrel to about $45 a barrel. And since gasoline is a key input in the production or distribution of goods and services, when the price of oil collapsed back here in 2014, that was reducing the supply curve. Cost of production is falling, so the SRAS is shifting outward, and that's leading to a period of deflation. But I'll mention these as we go ahead and graph it. Okay, so those are just some historical examples of deflation. So here we have our first graph. So this will be scenario one of creating and eliminating a deflationary gap. And this is a graph that we have seen, but now we're going to apply our understanding of deflation to this model. Again, deflation, a sustained decrease in the price level. So the price level is falling. One simple way to illustrate this is, well, first starting, here we are at point A. We have an equilibrium where 81, right? We know that 81 is equal to SRAS1, which is equal to LRAS. All right, we're at full potential GDP. Real GDP is at full potential at YP. We're fully employing our land, labor, and capital. We're at the long run level of unemployment. Again, in the United States, perhaps it's about 5% is our long run average level of unemployment over several decades. And we have a price level equal to PL1. So the economy is doing quite well at point A. But let's let's just use a hypothetical example. September 11th terrorist attacks reduces consumer and business confidence. People are very concerned if there will be another potential attack. People are nervous. Businesses are nervous. Is this going to be a sustained attack over time, or is this a one-time incident? So all of that uncertainty creates a lower business and business and consumer confidence. And we know that AD equals C plus I plus G plus net exports, or exports minus imports. And the September 11th attack really reduced consumer confidence and reduced business confidence. And that led to reduced consumption spending by households and reduced investment spending by firms. So AD shifts in from 81 to, let's say, 82. So here we are at 82. And here we are at point B. Okay. The decreased aggregate demand leads to a new equilibrium where 82, I'll make a note, where 82 equals SRAS 1, and these two are behind, right, it's less than where the LRAS curve is. So we have a new equilibrium level of output at Y recession, and a new equilibrium level, price level at PL2. So right here we see the deflation within the model. The price level has fallen. So here we have that sustained decrease in the price level from PL1 to PL2 at point B. Because of the reduced aggregate demand, firms quickly respond by reducing the quantity of their aggregate supply. And as they reduce their quantity of aggregate supply, they are firing factors of production like labor, which is increasing the unemployment rate. So perhaps the unemployment rate is going up to 10% within the economy. And we have GDP less than full potential. Y recession is less than full potential GDP at YP. So the economy is in a deflationary gap or a recessionary gap. But for the Monetarist model, perhaps deflationary gap is more appropriate. Now let's assume, this is an assumption, this is not necessarily what happened, but let's just assume that firms in this recessionary, deflationary gap are quickly looking for ways, alternative ways to reduce their costs of production. And maybe they're implementing more automation technology, perhaps later AI technology. Perhaps they're employing more freelance workers as opposed to keeping full-time workers. And that enables firms to reduce their cost of production, which pulls the SRAS curve downward. So in the long run, as a result of firms seeking out these ways to reduce cost of production, the SRAS curve shifts outward. And we've seen this graph before. We've done this when we talk about the creation and elimination of a recessionary or deflationary gap. So we reach a new equilibrium at point C as a result of firms reducing their cost of production using perhaps automation or AI technology, or using more freelance workers as opposed to maintaining fully employed workers. And so SRAS shifts out from SRAS 1 to SRAS 2. Okay, and that provides a new equilibrium price level at PL3. And thus again, we see another decrease in the price level, thus more deflation. Okay, where AD2 equals SRAS2 equals LRAS, we're back at full employment at YP, we're back at full potential GDP at YP, and we have a lower price level at PL3. Since firms have found ways to reduce their cost of production, that allows them to reduce their prices. And as prices of goods and services falls from PL2 to PL3, that encourages increased consumption along the new demand curve of 82. So the quantity of aggregate demand increases from point B to C, or from Y recession 1 to YP. Now it's important to note that when aggregate demand fell from 81 to 82, and the price level fell from PL1 to PL2, that's what we would call bad deflation, because we are in a recessionary gap. We've entered a recessionary gap. We have increased unemployment, and we have a sustained fall in the price level. But let's also notice that as a result of SRAS shifting out due to firms seeking ways to reduce cost of production, with the SRAS curve shifting outward and the ability to employ more factors of production at a lower wage or lower rent or lower interest, allowing them to reduce prices, increasing aggregate demand, we reach full employment. Unemployment falls from 10% back to 5%. So here we're fully employing our factors of production. The economy is back at its long-run level of output, and that's what we would call good deflation as a result of the increase in the short-run aggregate supply curve. So when we see 80 shifting in, taking us into a recessionary gap, that leads to what we call bad deflation. But as a result of SRAS shifting outward, reduced costs of production, or people willing to work for a lower wage, instead of willing to work for 10, you're now willing to work for 5. Firms employ those cheaper resources, cost of production falls, we reach full employment, and that's what we would call good deflation, because even though the price level's fallen from PL2 to PL3, we're back at our full potential level of output and full employment. Okay, so there will be another graph illustrating a deflationary spiral, and also another discussion of shifts in LRAS and SRAS. And that's it. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or to comment.